today's episode of Awkward Author, we're going to talk about something we've all heard about but don't really understand. That's right, we're going to be talking about proper manuscript formatting, and specifically why we format manuscripts the way we format them. But first, I'm going to get changed into something a little more mature. Oh, hello there. You might be wondering what this big giant thing on my desk is. It's called a typewriter. Back in the day, all books were typed on a typewriter. The really old ones did not have anything like correction film. So if you made a mistake, you were stuck with it. Forget about copying and pasting. Back then, pasting meant using actual paste. Today's proper manuscript format owes its existence to these babies. Times did change and typewriters got more high-tech. They became electric. They had things like correction tape in them. You could actually fix mistakes when you made them. Not really big mistakes. Those you'd probably have to retype. Then along came computers. When I was a child, we played high-tech games on computers. There was this one game where this yellow circle-shaped thing ate up little hyphens. And then there was the new edition, where the little circle thing had a bow in its hair and ate up hyphens. Eventually we figured out how to use computers for doing things other than making yellow circles eat hyphens. We actually figured out how to use them to type up manuscripts. And then, to print them out, we had these things called printers. There were no inkjet and laser printers way back in the day. Oh no, we had fancy things like dot matrix printers and daisy wheel printers. The daisy wheel printer was basically designed on a typewriter model. It had a little wheel in it with all the letters on it, and the computer would tell the printer which letters to print on the paper. Dot matrix printers used little dots of ink to make pictures and/or words. Usually the words were so faint and fuzzy that you couldn't actually read them. Now, because nobody was using typewriters anymore, it became very important to stress that proper manuscript format had to be used when writers were sending in submissions to agents and editors. Because dot matrix printers and daisy wheel printers meant that people started getting creative. And while editors and agents like you to be creative with your manuscript, they don't like you to be creative with the formatting of your manuscript. So editors and agents made it clear that all manuscripts should basically look like they came out of a typewriter. They specified 1-inch margins. And they wanted you to use a font that looked like a typewriter. Back in the day, it was Courier, or Courier New, which was kind of like that yellow circle, and the yellow circle with the bow on its head. They wanted you to clearly put your name and the page number at the top. This is really because agents and editors are kind of sloppy people, and sometimes they do things like drop manuscripts on the floor. Sorry, Jack. And then they have to put all the pages back together, so it's nice if they know which one goes with which. Sometimes that's not clear when you're reading a submission. Nowadays, we have inkjet and laser printers that can do even fancier things than dot matrix and daisy wheel printers. By all means, use these fancy settings to make birthday cards, print out signs to decorate your office cubicle, or send out your annual Christmas letter. But don't use these fancy features when you are printing out a manuscript to send in to an agent or an editor. It's great that you can print in color, but agents and editors don't want you to print in color on your manuscript. Use black font only. And speaking of fonts, they still kind of want it to look like a typewriter. Courier or Courier New are still the standard fonts that agents and editors request. Although there's some leeway now, you can use things like Times New Roman, or sometimes even for the really daring publishers and agents out there, Arial. But don't get any more creative or funky than this. Don't forget to double space your manuscript. You don't have to do this by manually double spacing after each line like you were using a typewriter. Thanks to the miracles of modern technology, even if you forget to initially double space your manuscript, that's why you can select all and then change the spacing. It probably should go without saying, but it doesn't. Print your manuscript on white paper. Yes, colored paper will make your manuscript stand out, but in this case, this is the bad kind of standing out. Agents and editors get a lot of submissions. While you want your submission to stand out, you want to stand out for good writing. Agents and editors are looking for any reason they possibly can to reject a manuscript, and nothing spells amateur like someone who has used a creative font, or has printed their manuscript on weirdly colored paper. That will almost automatically get dropped right in the trash. Mostly the goal is for agents and editors to actually read your manuscript, and in order to do this, you wanted to make it look like it came out of a typewriter. This is because years and years of typewritten manuscripts have conditioned us to easily read manuscripts that have been formatted in this way. Agents and editors are creatures of habit. Now, specifications can change from publishing house to publishing house or agent to agent, but if you follow basic manuscript guidelines and don't get too funky or creative in your formatting, you'll probably be safe. By the way, things have changed enough now that we can actually put italics in manuscripts. As recently as a decade ago, there were magazines and publishing houses who requested that italics be denoted with underscores at either end of where the italicized text was to be placed. The only reason for this was because that typewriters couldn't type in italic, so this was how you denoted italics on a typewriter. And so this format carried over into our modern age, even though we had printers that could easily print an italics font. But thankfully, publishers have gotten up to the modern times and actually allow us to put italic text in our manuscripts. And it's no longer considered proper to put 2 spaces after a period, which was always the habit when we used typewriters. I used to work as a newspaper copy editor, and one of my jobs was to open up each submission or article we received and go through and do a find and replace for double space to single space. And this would eliminate all the double spaces after periods from writers who had been trained to put double spaces after their periods because they learned to type on typewriters or even on computers when this was still the norm. So remember, double space between lines, 1-inch margins, black type of a boring, normal font, and absolutely no funky formatting. Well, that was completely awkward. My name's Alissa Grasso. I put out new awkward author videos every Tuesday. Stop back next week for your next dose of awkwardness. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or otherwise share this video with your friends.